1. Way back in the early 90s, mid-recession Britain, I had been out of work for months, picking up just the occasional day or two's temping with a local employment agency. I was a hard-working, reliable temp, and made it clear to the agency that if something full-time and permanent came up, I'd jump at the chance. They called me one Thursday afternoon to tell me that such a chance had indeed arisen, and congratulations. I was starting a full-time permanent job the following Monday. I was ecstatic, and after a couple more phone calls and faxes ironing out a few things, and incredulous confirmation that this was 100% a done deal, my agency contact told me to give her a call on Friday morning for start time, address, who to report to, etc. In a celebratory mood, I went and bought a load of beer, and with the last remnants of what I supposed would be my final dole check, I took my girlfriend out for a nice meal. Bright and early the next morning, I called to speak with my agency contact. Busy. She'll call me shortly. Wait an hour. Called again. Just popped out of the office. Call her again in a few. On lunch. The woman avoided me all day until at some point in the afternoon I asked someone if they could find out what was going on. Ah, they said. Someone else with more experience got the position. I was rather pissed off, and skint, and still jobless. I was angry with myself too, counting chickens, etc. A week went by, and I got a call from another employee of the agency asking if I could help them out. They had a long-standing, lucrative contract with a warehousing company, but the relationship had turned sour as temp kept either not returning or not turning up at all to work there. They had one last chance to make things right. Why not call their hard-working, reliable super temp, i.e. me? Of course, I'd help out and would be on site promptly at 8 a.m. the next morning, I said. Cue several angry messages on the answer phone the following day, beginning with, "Where are you?" and "Thanks to you, Company X will no longer be using us," to "Because you've cost us this contract. You shan't be working with us any longer." I didn't care. I signed up with another agency the next day, and even though I didn't get a proper job for another year, I still relished giving the middle finger to the fuckers who'd given me false hope at a tough time. Ironically, through my new agency, I ended up working a few days for Company X in their shitty warehouse. 2. I, 20 and male at the time, and 2 roommates, both 20 male, rented a house near the college we attended. The house was owned by a couple in their 50s. They had left some furniture and some bookcases in the house they said belonged to former tenants and we could use them. When we moved in, we had no idea how nuts these people were, but we stayed for nearly 4 years. Now, we were 3 dudes in college. Of course, we left our mark in that house. However, we all grew up with excellent parents who taught us responsibility, and we made sure to deep clean the hell out of the place for 3 straight days. We then hired a carpet cleaning company to professionally clean the carpets. It was spotless. We also tossed a few of the leftover furniture because over time it had busted or been worn to shit. But other than that, maybe some paint, a pair of blinds, a broken sprinkler head, and oil stains on the garage door. It looked like it did when we moved in. They arrive for the walkthrough and the woman loses her mind with rage. Apparently, the furniture was not left behind by former tenants, but pieces made by her father in the 50s. This house is the house she grew up in, apparently. She cursed us out for what felt like hours. We spent the next week tracking down the discarded items, actually getting nearly all of them back from the city's dump. Seriously, don't ask how we did it because it was nothing short of a Christmas miracle. The only things we couldn't get back were some custom-made pillow cushions. We returned the items and waited the dreaded deposit decision. After 30 days pass, we reach out to find how much of the deposit we will be getting back. The man says he's fixing things up around the house and will get back to us soon. Another 30 days pass. Ask again. He said it's taking longer because he's doing it all himself, but he'll get to it. Another 30 days pass. Says he's almost done. At this point, one of our parents tells us the window for this is closed. He owes us our full deposit and to take them to small claims court so they couldn't string us along any further. They show up. Only they're putting on a show. These two very healthy, very capable people walk into court like they're on their last legs. The man uses a cane and now has a hunch to walk. The woman uses a walker she doesn't need, and her voice quivers as she talks to the judge. The acting display they put on was actually incredible. We sued them for our $1,800 deposit. They countersued us for $10,000 in damages. They claim we destroyed the home and basically had to replace floors and walls and fixtures that were never damaged. Also, part of it is $900 for the cushions we threw out. The judge buys all of it, leering at us, telling us how irresponsible we are, even before we get to present our side of evidence, and how sorry he is for the couple that they have to go through this. We win our $1,800, but only because it's literally the law. But we're also ordered to pay them the full $10,000. Yikes. Thinking we're screwed, we wise up and go get a lawyer who appeals the decision. We roll up into court with our badass lawyer, and they, thinking it would just be us again, arrive lawyerless, with only their old and feeble charade. Our lawyer tears them apart. This new judge isn't buying their nonsense this time, keeps calling them out on their inconsistencies and lies. Appeals decision comes back. We still get our full deposit back, and we only owe them $263 in damages. When we go to pay our side of the judgment to them, our lawyer tells us not to pay them at all. To get their money, they'd have to sue us again for not paying and would spend way more than $263. After receiving their check for our deposit, we take some of the money, purchase the typed-up court transcripts of them getting shredded in a courtroom, put them in an envelope, and mail it over to them with a note that reads, "Thanks for the memories." 3. This was done by an ex-colleague. This happened a few years ago when I was working as a techno manager for an Indian startup IT firm. It was a small firm with less than 50 employees, and there were two founders, Vicky and Joel. Vicky had worked a short time in an MNC, but was not able to stand authority and had to resign. Whereas Joel had no real workplace experience, Vicky managed a place like a king. Show tantrums, anger, etc. Joe was simply a yes-man to Vicky. Now, we had an HR lady who was okay-ish with the older employees and strict with the newer ones. As for me, I was not that good technically compared to my colleagues, but was good at people management, as I was one of the longest-serving employees too. I was friendly with most of the employees, especially the new ones. This was due to the fact that I knew it was not easy to work with the founders, and I wanted the show to continue as it was my first company too. So a new joinee named Bob joins, and after 6 months he is assigned to a project. Because of the time zone difference, he worked up to 4 or 5 a.m., and the client was too happy with him. Since he was sleeping late, this guy always reported at nearly 11:30 a.m. in office. Out of the blue, the founder calls me and HR and asks why Bob is late to office, and said he had to be in the office by 10 a.m. As other guys, by the way, forgot to mention, Vicky and Joel came into the office only once in a while, and it was pre-corona times, but since they are the founders, let's ignore that. HR lady took the responsibility of asking Bob about that. At this point, since the HR lady was not aware of Bob's working hours, I interrupted and told her that he's leaving the office by only 2 or 4 a.m., and it's kind of unfair to ask him to come early. Vicky cuts me off and says, "No, he has to follow the rules. This is basic etiquette when working in this office." I say, "Okay." HR lady calls Bob in her office and questions him about the time, to which Bob says, "Okay, ma'am, we'll comply." Now, Bob and me have a good rapport, and he comes directly to me and tells me what happened with HR. Then I ask him, "What are you going to do?" To which he says, "I will ask for a clarification via mail and then we'll comply." I understood where it's going and give him the best of luck, trying hard to contain my laughter. After 10 minutes, HR comes to me with her laptop in panic to show me the mail which Bob has sent. He has CC'd the founders, the client head he's reporting to, and has written something in the lines of, "Hi, client head name, this is to inform you that as a request from my office to comply to the office timings, from tomorrow onwards, My work timings will be 10 a.m. IST to 7 p.m. IST, i.e. 10:30 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. Chicago time. I request you to change your meeting times to the times when I am available, and if any inconveniences, please contact HR, Vicky or Joel. Thanks, Bob. I asked HR if this was somewhere mentioned in the offer letter, and she nods. Then I tell her to take the matter to Vicky. At Vicky's room, since the narcissist guy he is, he scolds HR for noting this in the offer letter, then asks her to correct this. She goes to Bob and asks for correction, to which Bob firmly says no. HR lady, being stupid, tells him that she told him this because Vicky asked her to, and Bob still stands firm and asks HR if Vicky has said it, then Vicky can formally reply in the mail thread asking to revert to his old timing. Bob also said he is not going to get back to the old timings unless Vicky mails, and they have approximately 4 hours to do so before the client reacts. HR comes to me for help, and we go together to Vicky's room and brief. Vicky lashed out at HR, and at this point I interrupt and say, it's better to address the issue as in 4 hours the client will get involved, and we have to take the decision before that. Vicky hesitantly sent out the mail saying it was a mistake, as Bob's a special case and was not considered during the decision-making, and Bob can continue his earlier hours. As I walk back to the office, I saw Bob looking at me and laughing really hard, and I had to hold a straight face, as HR lady was also behind me. Needless to say, Bob had his timings intact. 4. Many years ago, I was working in a bar in a college town. I was the DJ. We had no dance floor, but took requests, and played what I would call party music. The manager was the guy who hired me, and his girlfriend at the time was one of the top-earning waitresses. She was actually really good at her job, and woe betide the bartender who had to take her order at last call because it was always a long list of drinks for multiple tables. And this was long before computers or printers were common in bars and restaurants. The manager is Bob, and his girlfriend was Ginny. A few notes on this bar: we paid attention to how many people we let inside to keep below the fire code limit of 196 people. Most of the nearby bars didn't do this, and would regularly get fined. We guarded hard at the door to keep the kids out, also a rarity at the time, and we were not afraid to cut people off who had too much to drink. We would watch people as they entered the bar, and if they'd already had too much to drink, we wouldn't serve them any alcohol. Pop, coffee, water, and snacks, sure, but no booze. Lastly, employees weren't allowed to drink when we were on the clock. We were generally liked by the local authorities as a result of how responsibly the bar was run. So, this all went down on New Year's Eve in the early 90s in the upper Midwest, when it was well below freezing and on one of our busiest nights of the year. We generally would have a line to get in before 10 p.m. on busy nights, and as mentioned, this was New Year's Eve, so we were full. If you weren't in the bar by 10, you likely weren't going to get in until after midnight. All the other bars in the neighborhood were full, and they also had lines, so you weren't getting into them either. The anti-hero of this tale is at a table of 5 guys, and they'd been in there for a while by this time, had gone through several pitchers of beer, and were feeling no pain. They ordered a new pitcher for the table around 11:30 or so, and this is how that played out. When Jenny brought them their fresh pitcher, one of the bright bulbs at the table decided to reach up and grab her breast. Now Jenny being Jenny, she took it all in stride. Set down the pitcher, took the money, gave them their change, and accepted their $1 tip. She then picked up the pitcher and poured it straight into the bright bulb's lap, and told Bob these guys needed to be booted out of the bar for touching a waitress. Of course, all the guys at the table immediately protested and claimed she'd spilled the pitcher on the bright bulb for no reason, and they wanted her fired on the spot. Bob's response from behind the bar was priceless. "That's my girlfriend. If you did that, she did it for a reason, and yeah, you're gone." After 5 minutes of arguing back and forth, these guys figured out they weren't making any headway, and could see they needed to cut their losses, and left of their own accord. i.e. without the help of our local constabulary, and before any charges were filed. At this point, 11:45 p.m. on December 31st in the upper Midwest, when the weather outside was about 10 degrees Fahrenheit, windy and now with beer-soaked pants. I'm happy to say I'm still friends with Bob and his wife Ginny to this day. Even though we've all moved on to different jobs, there are other fun stories from my time there. But this one's pretty timely, and is the one that fits best. Happy New Year, everyone. 5. To begin, my ex-girlfriend and I had been dating for 3 years up until this point. 1.5 of those years had been long distance, and the last 1.5 were together in her home country. When I say the last 1.5 of those were in her home country, I want to make it clear that, in order to be together, I dropped close to everything in my life to move to be with her. That is to say, I left my family, friends, and all my customs and cultural norms to be together. I did still retain my job, which I worked remotely in her country, though I had to massively shift my work schedule to match the time difference, which was pretty difficult in of itself, so I was able to contribute heavily to bills, rent, etc. The first 6 months of us living together went fairly well. There were some bumps here and there, but it was nice to finally be together. Towards the end of the last 6 months of our relationship, however, she began to get extremely paranoid and insecure. She also went off medication and quit therapy around this time as well, due to her therapist wanting to do exposure therapy, which she didn't want to do. This, coupled with a lot of insecurity due to weight gain and her perceived loss of hotness, made her very insecure, although I still found her very beautiful and honestly didn't notice much of a difference. The last night I was with her, she demanded to see my phone so she could go through it to verify I wasn't cheating, to which I initially said no because I found it to be an invasion of privacy and no trust between us to have to go through my phone. Eventually I gave in and let her go through it after she began to throw all my belongings in the hallway of our flat, screaming at me to believe because I had cheated. When she went through my phone, of course she didn't find anything. However, by that point she said it was because I had deleted the evidence, and kicked me out into the middle of her country. I had nowhere to go, no idea what I was going to do, and eventually just got a room at a shitty hotel and booked a flight the next day to go back to my country, as I had work after the weekend was over. She then called me a few times to say she wanted to work things out, only to go back on them and say, "Actually, I'm only saying that so you'll leave me alone." No idea why that was needed, but felt unusually cruel. Anyway, once I got back to my country, I was horribly depressed and really felt absolutely violated and wronged, as I literally had done nothing wrong. I was faithful to her, our entire relationship. I tried to move on, but still had this feeling of unjustness and being angry that she had me reset my life just for her to then force me to reset it again over a mere suspicion. I decided I needed to level the playing field and get some sort of retribution. So I emailed her father pictures of us together, nothing sexual, just us taking pictures as a couple. To add context, my ethnic and religious background and hers are not very agreeable, and we are not to date or intermarry, and her father was quite conservative. More to that, she lied to him our entire relationship and said she wasn't even seeing anyone or interested in marriage, and she was focusing on her career, so learning that she had, in fact, been in a relationship for 3 years and that he was being lied to, I'm sure was quite the surprise. She then messaged me saying I ruined her father's view of her and their relationship, and I imagine that has not changed. I've heard that the best revenge is success, and I agree. I have so far, I'm still fairly young, achieved my short-term goals. But this has been a nice added bonus, and I do genuinely feel, after all she put me through, that it was well deserved. To clarify for anyone who may have concerns, she is Christian Lebanese and lives in the West. No risk of honor killing. Her baba, I'm sure, is disappointed and embarrassed. She dated al-Yahudi, but she's not in danger. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 328. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And thank you very much to my lovely partner Jack for helping me revamp the look of this video. If it's popular enough, we'll keep doing it that way. Before you go, please do hit the like button if you liked it, and if you want to get early access to the videos, then support me through my Patreon linked in the description. Just click Show More, click Patreon, takes you right to it. You'll also find a link there to the Hellfreezer merchandise store, due for a bit of an update soon. If you especially enjoyed the video, then you can leave me a tip by clicking on the little heart with a $sign in it. You don't have to do that, but I very much appreciate it, and it's been helping quite a bit. Okay. As there's no other business today... Oh, wait, no, there is. Oh, no, shame, shame, shame. I have 2 shout-outs to do. Let me think. Okay, the author of story number 1, titled Lie to Me About a Job. That was the person working for the employment agency that got screwed over. That is Reddit user Filthy the Dog. Thank you very much for allowing us to use your story, Filthy the Dog. And then, to the author of story number 3... the one about the company rules, and that goes to Royal Librarian 4201. Thank you very much, Royal Librarian, for allowing us to use your story. Okay. I think that's everything for today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... was there ever a method of doing something that always seemed perfectly normal to you, makes 100% sense, only for you to learn that there is people who never even realized it? Or was there something you realized you were doing wrong all your life and learned otherwise? Specifically for me, right, potato waffles are a very popular thing in the UK. Like, basically, savoury waffles made of potato. You cook them in the toaster. Put them down about 2 or 3 times, and then they're thoroughly cooked, depending how crispy you want them. It's always been a toaster product to me. I was genuinely surprised a couple of years back to learn some people didn't realize that's how you cook them. I don't know how other people are doing it. I guess you could fry them or do them in the oven, but you're making them more unhealthy if you fry them. It takes longer doing them in the oven, so that was mind-blowing to me that people didn't realize that. It's a toaster product. What are some of yours? Let me know what you think in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.